Due to YouTube policy, I should tell you that this is not a video that will teach you about how to make poison. All right, I am so excited about the very first book review on this channel. I picked a very specific book to start out with. It's actually one of my most favorite occult-related books that's come out in the past few years. The book is called The Poison Path Herbal by Coby Michael. I am super excited to talk about this book because this is a really great example of what I want to do on this channel, which is combine my love of horror, witchcraft, all that stuff kind of blended into one. Obviously, the topic of poison is a pretty spooky topic all on its own, but it's also something that many occult practitioners, such as myself, take very seriously. And when you study what we call the poison path, you can get a lot of deep spiritual insight and meaning from working with the toxic and baneful herbs, not just physically, but also spiritually too. This is a book that came out 2 or 3 years ago, I think, on Inner Traditions, which is a primarily occult and New Age publisher. There are a lot of books about poison plants and baneful kind of herbal magic out there, but really, I think that this is truly the first one that is getting into real physical, tangible information about the composition of the plants themselves, recipes, and physical applications.
Now a warning. Now a warning?
Now, there are very good reasons why this is one of the only books out there around this topic. You know, there's a lot of probably legal issues with teaching people about how to make poisons, about how to utilize poisons. Coby is an herbalist who really takes safety seriously, and an enormous amount of this book is about how to work with these plants safely. So before you start making recipes and crafts and stuff that are in this book, you really want to pay attention to Coby's safety instructions in the book. You want to practice basic common sense, and if you're going to be messing around with poisonous plants, it's important that you know the basics. So as a history nerd, I love that that is a pretty big part of the first portion of this book. The author goes really into depth about the history of witchcraft as it relates to the poison path in particular. Many of you might be familiar with the concept of the witch's flying ointment, you know, that noxious substance that witches were said to smear all over their bodies. It was made of baby fat and, you know, candle soot and evil dark plants, things like that. It causes them to be able to fly to the Sabbath and dance with the devil and all that good stuff. Many modern witches do use a form of a flying ointment, often called the Unguentum Sabbati. And this is something that really crosses with my fellow horror lovers. Those of you who have seen the movie The Witch from director Robert Eggers. If you have not, then you should stop this video right now and watch that movie. It's one of my all-time favorites. There is actually a scene in that movie where a witch is mixing up a flying ointment and using it to fly off into the sky. Of course, real flying ointments are used to induce a sort of trance state to allow you to astral project your spirit onto the other side, to the world of fairy, to the world of the gods, the ancestors, what have you. So I love that Coby not only gets into the history of that, but also talks about recipes of not only that particular type of ointment, but other ways to work with poisonous and baneful herbs through incenses, oils, potions, to kind of achieve an ecstatic state, to induce trance, and to help you traverse the other world. So the layout of this book is divided by planetary concepts. So people with a even cursory knowledge of astrological occult lore will be familiar with these concepts. Saturn is related to death, transformation, the underworld, Venus's love, beauty, sex, feminine power, and Coby talks about the various types of baneful plants that fall under those elemental and planetary categories. Many people would associate baneful herbs just with the planet Saturn, but there are so many astrological and planetary correspondences with baneful herbs that historically were related to so many other types of vibrations and correspondences. Coby talks about the plant mandrake, for example. That is an aphrodisiac type of baneful plant that's related to the planet Venus. So folks who may not be as familiar with those kind of historical associations are going to find a really dense space of eye-opening historical material about planetary correspondences in particular, which I find just so helpful for any occultist's personal body of knowledge. Something that I find really refreshing about this book is that, as the first book in a projected series about this topic, Coby isn't really giving ritual structure, sample spells, things like that. All of that stuff is all great and wonderful, but he's very focused on giving you these foundational sets of information and tools, and that empowers you to craft your own rituals and spells later on if you want to. But more importantly, it's not a book of information that is necessarily for ritual magic at all. He gives very specific recipes for physical ailments like pain relief salves, things like that. So there's a lot of physical, worldly, practical information where even if you were an atheist herbalist, there's still so much in this book that you could benefit from. He actually goes into the measurements of the plants themselves and what various measurements will do based on the plant's composition, their makeups. This is very rare to find in books like this. Again, probably because of legal issues. Many authors on this topic are really worried about giving recipes and measurements. They don't want to get sued if you accidentally off yourself. So even just in that regard, it's pretty remarkable and cool that the publisher even allowed this book to come to print. And I hope that this is the start of more books in the topic that give kind of a scientific lens to the plants and go into their chemical compositions and makeups. A similar author in the field of occultism who puts a very scientific lens on the makeup of things is Nicholas Pearson. He writes so many wonderful crystal books, such a prolific author. Feels like that one is churning out a book every month. But Nicholas goes into, the hardness, density scale of stones, where various stones come from, how they were made originally. I think that information like this is something that's greatly missing in kind of the magical world in general. It might not interest a ton of people, but when you allow yourself the deep dives into the physical scientific information, I personally feel so much more connected to plants, stones, waters, various types of earths and soils when I know what they physically are, what their scientific names are. So to me, that is a really big green flag for books on this topic. Does the author know what they're talking about? Not just magically, but physically, chemically, scientifically. And yes, Coby Michael absolutely knows what he's talking about in this area. Now, if you are looking for a book just like this, but more focused on spells and rituals. I understand that Coby is coming out with a new book in this series. I believe it's going to be called The Poison Path Grimoire. Don't attack me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure that's the title of it. And my understanding is that will be a resource for ritual magic and spell work relating to the baneful herbs. I'm super excited to read that and to have it come out. So again, we are reading The Poison Path Herbal, Baneful Herbs, Medicinal Nightshades, and Ritual Entheogens by Coby Michael, and it is published by Park Street Press, which is an imprint of Inner Traditions, available now from all fine occult booksellers. If you're interested in witchy and occult book reviews, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be posting a lot of these. I'm a huge book nerd. And if you guys have any recommendations on occult books, please send them my way. I'm mostly trying to focus on new-ish books focused in the past couple of years, but nothing is on the table, so let me know. Thanks for stopping by, and don't forget to make it weird.